It is my great pleasure at this time to present to you one of the most dynamic women I know, somebody that I've worked with over 20 years. She's been here at Unity Temple over 12 times, and she truly is a mover, not only in the women's movement, but in equal rights movements and in the general uplifting of all humanity. Her name is Marianne Williamson. We talked earlier this week, and I'm sure that you'll enjoy her message.
As Duke was saying, we've known each other for 25 years. And a lot of us have known each other for 25 years, whether we have known each other personally, as he and I have, or whether because of maybe you've read my books, you've been to places where I have spoken, particularly at the Unity Temple in Kansas City. But even more than that, we've all been on a journey together, culturally and societally, having read many books, not just mine, but many people's books, listened to tapes, and overall become conversant in the issues of spiritual principle, new thought, etc. And I think we all feel that we have been deeply transformed by ideas that have liberated us from chains that bind us. Much as I was saying to Duke, in a society like ours, the chains that bind us are usually not external chains, thank God, but they are internal chains. But you know, invisible walls are still walls. And invisible chains are still chains. And there's nothing that can hold us back more than a thought that I'm not good enough, or a thought that they won't let me, or a thought that for whatever reason, I won't give myself permission. I think that that's what I've come to understand in my own life, that I have gotten to a point where if I'm honest with myself, the person who holds me back is me. The person who questions me most is me. The person who, and this has been true throughout my life, and when I see this come up again, I'm just kind of amazed sometimes, not giving myself permission to go forward. And I noticed, I was in a situation recently where I noticed a man in a very similar situation to mine, and I don't think it even occurred to him to doubt himself. The situations were really no different, but it just kind of didn't occur to him to say, oh, I can't possibly. It didn't even occur to him to say, oh, I might embarrass myself if I do that. It didn't even occur to him to lack confidence in what he was capable of. It was a situation that I look back on realizing that I wasn't practicing the principles I preach. You know, I've been at this stuff a long time, and when I practice what I preach, my life works pretty well. And what I mean by that is when I practice the principles, we all know this, you learn the principles, and then the issue becomes whether or not you apply them. Just knowing principles intellectually doesn't transform your life. It's when you say, I will apply that principle. Now, I think at the deepest level, you know, the principle that we all realize is that at the deepest level, none of us are male or female. None of us are black, white, brown, old, young. The deepest level, whether you call that deepest level the Christ or whatever you call it, is that oneness that we share that is beyond the body. The important thing about it is that it is a space in the mind of God in which we were created perfect. And it is our mission on this earth to extend that perfection. And that perfection is love. So, you know, I can know that, but the issue is when I go into any situation, is my heart open or not? Am I judging that person and blaming that person and in whatever way running a game on that person? Or is my heart really open? And as I've already said here today, you know, it's not even just with other people, but also with myself. But today I want to talk specifically about how this applies to being a woman, because there's a certain kind of love for self that is sometimes harder for women. And it's harder for women because the thinking of the world, the consciousness of fear that dominates the planet. And I'm not saying men don't have it hard, because men have their own set of thoughts that are projected onto them and limitations and all of that. I'm not saying that men have it easier in every area. But the area where I do believe they have it easier is that the world tells men, particularly white men, that, you know, the power is yours. And I think a lot of people are coming to understand there's some delusion there, because the world is disempowering to everyone if we really try to challenge any of the basic assumptions that dominate this world. But for women particularly, this idea that you better not go there. And the ways that we are held back often is through the feeling that if I do that, I'll be embarrassed. If I do that, people will laugh at me. If I do that, they won't let me. And we all have different, reasons based on our culture, based on our ethnicity, based on our culture, based on our age. Oh, they would never let me. I'm too old for that. They would never let me. Well, the Course in Miracles says all thought creates form on some level. So if I have that thought, they'll never let me. I'm too old. They wouldn't let a woman do that. Then that's the first wall right there. So the first place you have to remove that is from your own mind. And the way we remove negative thoughts, limiting thoughts, from a spiritual perspective, is that we hand them to God to be transformed. If it was 100 years ago and somebody said, let's talk about inclusion and love and forgiveness and kindness, somebody would say, oh, you mean angels. And then if someone were to say, let's talk about violence and cruelty and terrible, terrible, mean things, somebody would say, oh, you mean demons, angels and demons. That before there was modern psychology, people just talked about angels and demons in our heads. Remember, those things aren't outside us, they are inside us. And it's easy work for the loveless one to just say, you can't do that. You can't possibly do that. They'll laugh at you. Whatever it would take to shut you up, whatever it would take to make you hold back, whatever it would take to make you withhold your gifts. Well, Satan, get thee behind me. It's always about recognizing, yes, I have this thought, I see this, but I'm willing to surrender it to God. You can use the concept of Holy Spirit, whatever is true for you, asking that this thought be removed. So what I've seen in my life is great. So I got there. I got to realizing that I was holding myself back, and it was up to me to stand forth in my truth. Well, first wall is getting over the part in myself that is so sure that I can't possibly do that because the world will laugh at me and they won't let me, and who am I? And then there's the second wall. And that's when everything that you feared would happen happens. And they do talk mean stuff about you. And they do undermine you, and they do sabotage you. And they do make it harder for you. And sometimes it is because you're a woman. And sometimes the people who are doing it are other women. What do we do then? Well, our temptation is to scurry back into the hole. Ooh, okay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. But we're living at a time in history when we can't afford to do that, because the world is very unbalanced. It is very unbalanced in this primacy that it gives to the voice of the masculine. We must stand forth. When I was a little girl, my mother used to say that the primary responsibility of a woman is to take care of her children and to take care of her home. And I didn't think I didn't like that. I thought that, I wanted to go out into the world and do something bigger than that. And it took me decades to recognize that I was very wrong about my mother. There is no important work than taking care of the children and taking care of your home. It's just that we've expanded now in consciousness to realize this must mean everyone's children. And this must mean everyone's home, which is the earth we share. And so we will not be able to even survive as a species. We will not even be able to survive as a species unless that wisdom of my mother's, that wisdom of the woman does come forward to say, first we take care of the babies. First, we take care of the babies. 12,000 children starve a day on this earth. How do you even take that in? I heard someone say the other day, this blew my mind. Did you know that there are more stars in the sky? This is so amazing. Prepare yourself for what I'm about to tell you. Do you know that there are more stars in the sky than there are grains of sand on all the beaches of the world? Is that mind-blowing? Now, I don't know about you, but I find it hard even conceiving of that. And yet, we have that same inability to embrace the enormity of a fact applied to other things as well. So when you say to me 12,000 children starve a day, it's almost like if you said to me 5 children are starving. It's almost like I can understand it more easily. 12,000 children dying a day is just, it's unacceptable. And it's particularly unacceptable because it's unnecessary. You know, if the richest countries in the world just decided within 10 years to get rid of global poverty, it just wouldn't exist. Well, if our job as women is to take care of the children and to take care of the earth, the same thing goes with climate change and everything else like that. If that's the role of a woman, to take care of our children and to take care of our home, then doesn't this have to expand in the 21st century? Don't we have to move beyond the personal self? I mean, isn't that what spiritual growth is? Isn't the realization of the Christ within us is the realization that at the deepest level, it's not just that you and I are similar or even that you and I are the same. At the deepest level, we are each other. You know, the spokes on a wheel, where there are those, you know, you can identify yourself with the individual spoke on the rim, and every spoke is separate and independent of every other spoke. But if you go all the way down to the hub, we don't just come to the same point, we are the same point. We are one another. That is the spiritual truth at the heart of all the great religious and spiritual teachings. And I believe that women are here to proclaim that. We give birth. And even if we don't give birth physically, giving birth physically is the least of it. We give birth from the deepest aspect of our being. All humanity does, but women, this idea of giving birth to new ideas, giving birth to relationships. You know, I was reading that they used to, you know, when I grew up, everybody was saying that if there's stress, that the main reaction of humanity of a human being to stress is to fight or to flee. And I read not too long ago that that's actually not true. They used to just study that in men, hello. And that the primary responsibility of a woman to stress is to tend and mend. That seems so true to me. If I'm in stress, what do? I call a friend, would you come over? Maybe not during COVID, but can you talk? You just want to get together. That voice of tenderness, that voice of, can we be together? That voice, can we take care of each other? And yes, that voice of, can we take care of the children, regardless of whether they're our children? That's part of mature consciousness, whether socially or spiritually, that you take care of the next generation. But women have been made to feel like, what do you have to give? And especially when it comes to economics, you know, the economic system was invented, modern economic system was invented before women even had a voice in the public sphere. So we need to take care of the babies first. You know, raising children was considered women's work. It had nothing to do with the great economic and social questions. But we do have a voice now, and we need to lift them. And we don't lift our voice until first we give ourselves permission to lift our voice. And what we've talked about here already today is first you have to give yourself permission. And you give yourself permission when you realize what you have to say doesn't have to do with anybody else's opinion. You know, when I turned 50 years old, a girlfriend of mine said, 50. 50 is the age past which you don't care what other people think anymore. And I found that in many ways to be true. But I also found something equally amazing at 60. When I turned 60, it's not even that I don't care what other people think. I have to say it. You know, we talk about the wise women, we talk about the elders, but too often if they're some indigenous tribe or some other culture, then we give them respect. What about us? What about women right here? You know, sometimes young people say to me, we just don't have any elder models. And I've said to young people, when was the last time you asked your grandparents their life story? The wisdom of the elders is all around you, and the wisdom of women is all around you. And no, you're not going to find in too many cases that the world is going to be beating down your door to ask you your wisdom. You yourself have to say, woman's wisdom is needed in the world today. The fact that I don't see the world the way the world sees itself is not the bad thing, it's the good thing. I think Krishnamurti said something along the line of, it's no measure of mental health to be considered healthy by an insane society. I mean, obviously, the way we've been doing it isn't working. If anything's clear, it's that the way we've been doing it isn't working. But there's a new way. And when we talk about the birth of the divine feminine that's coming forward, the divine feminine expresses itself through real women. You're going to talk about the goddesses. You know, I was reading Jean Shinoda Bolen. I love her books and all the Greek goddesses. But the point is, they express through real women. I've even known some men, I thought, oh, he loves the divine feminine, he loves the goddesses, it's real women he has a problem with. We're real women, we're real flesh and blood women. And this is where it matters, the life we live today. And there are so many ways. It could be in your marriage, it could be in your partnership, it could be with your children, it could be in your community, it could be in your country, it could be in your world, where you might find yourself feeling something's wrong with the conversation people are having. I want to have a different conversation. And you find all the ways in yourself, you go, I better not say that. But you get to a point where no, not only do I have to give myself permission to say it, but it's not just for my sake, it's for the world. God placed each of us on this earth to give a message. And that message is his love. So whether it's a business meeting or political vote or your family life, you're here to take a stand for love. To say, what about the children? What about the home? And what about taking care of each other? And what about feeding the children? That's what we do. We know that lives fall apart. And I think one of the reasons we're so clear about lives falling apart is because we see what happens in the lives of children, many of us. You know, we know things about the human brain that they didn't know even 10 years ago about what goes on in the brain before the age of 8 and 10. It's unbelievable how much of brain development happens in early childhood. If we would just take care of our children better. Dalai Lama said, if we would teach children to meditate, he said, if we would teach children to meditate, there would be no war within 20 years. And I think that just might be true. But who's going to say that? Who's going to stand up and say, well, if we meditated for 20 years, we'd end war? It would be hard to stand up and say that in a lot of situations because people will laugh at us. We don't want to be laughed at. I think we all have a cellular memory of witch burning, a cellular memory of a time when women who were bringing forth, they were the midwives, they were the healers, they were the herbalists. They knew about giving birth. They knew about holding in alignment our consciousness with a sense of sacred relationship with the earth and the sky and the trees. This entire era and dispensation of female power was destroyed violently. That hundreds of thousands of women were burned at the stake. That's who these women were. The word witch meant wise woman. And they were mainly the healers, and they were mainly the midwives. They were a challenge. They were a challenge to the prevailing system that was emerging of patriarchal power, power in the institutions rather than in the human heart, including the religious institutions. But all that is coming back around again. But I think that we have some fear. Maybe they'll burn me at the stake. I was in a situation where everybody was laughing at me, lying about me, saying all these crazy things about me. And I noticed how many women knew better. They knew me. They were my friends. They knew I wasn't some wacky, crazy crystal lady. But I was so hurt when people didn't show up. They didn't stand up. They didn't put on their Instagram. You know, I don't know if I agree with her, but she's a decent person. People were afraid, well, if they're laughing at her and I say I like her, maybe they'll laugh at me. And that's why sisterhood is so important. You know, when I was back in the 70s, I know many of us remember this, the whole sisterhood feminism of the 1970s. We understood it wasn't enough for one woman to be able to get the same money or for one woman to be able to succeed. No, it has to be sisterhood. None of us are going to get there unless all of us get there. So I read a study once that if a woman does speak up in a meeting or something where she says something that could get her laughed at, if even one person will raise their hand, speak up and say, actually, I agree with her, then everything in the room will change. The conversation will change. And if you change the conversation, you start to change the world. And I believe that's what we're here for. That's why I believe we incarnated as women. It's a glorious thing to be a woman, but it's harder in some ways. We all know that. And the reason we are holding events like this, the reason we are having conversations like this, is because we're ready to take a next step. You wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be at this conference if it weren't for the fact that you are ready to take that next step in your humanity, a next step in your global citizenship, next step in your sense of what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a mother, what it means to be a wife, what it means to be a girlfriend, what it means to be a business owner, what it means to be an employee, what it means to be an employer, what it means to be a citizen of this country and of this world, your country, whatever your country is. We're stepping it up inside ourselves. We're stepping up our sense of ourselves. And you can't step it up without that step up, including a greater sense of, yes, I am here to say something. I am here to do something. The Course in Miracles says that we have humility and arrogance completely confused. We think it's arrogant to say, yes, I can. The Course in Miracles says that would actually be arrogant for you to think you can't. Because the only way you can't do great things is if apparently God didn't create you. But since God did create you, the Course in Miracles says, the most humble thing you can realize is that there is unlimited power within you. You're a daughter of God. You know, when my daughter was bat mitzvah, she's 30 years old now, so it was a long time ago. And she had been at her cousin's bat mitzvahs, and she came home and she said, Mommy, I need to know, what do you think the theme of my bat mitzvah should be? I never heard of that concept, the theme. She said, it's like winter in Paris or, I said, what do you mean? She started naming all these things that could be the theme of my bat mitzvah. I said, let me tell you, the theme of your bat mitzvah is that you are becoming a woman in the eyes of God. That's your theme. There's no theme more important. That's your theme. When the cantor brought her back to me at the end of the service, it was so profound. He said, you brought her here as a child. I return her to you, a woman. And I had no idea before that, the kind of effect that that was going to have on me. So I saw her differently. It wasn't just about her, it was how I saw her. And that's a problem we have in our society today, this coming of age process and journey that does not occur too much enough. We have too many women still stuck in the gestalt of a little girl. We have too many men still stuck in the gestalt of a boy. We can't have that, not right now. The world is in trouble. We need to become everything that we possibly can be. And also with our young people, if we don't give them through ceremony or ritual, some kind of acknowledgement of that movement of adolescence and moving into this run up to womanhood or to manhood, then they start dysfunctionally making the mark themselves. Well, some of us feel that we never quite left the little girl in us. And I see that in my life. I had surgery a couple of months ago. And it was the surgery itself, routine enough, but very, very painful post-operatively. And I was told that. Nobody lied to me about it. They said, it's rough. And it was rough. But I had gone to doctors, I had all the tests done, and there was no choice. If I had not had the surgery, I would have had that pain for the rest of my life, probably. And I remember the day I said to myself, you're just going to have to put your big girl's pants on here and just decide to do it. Because I was seeing myself going into, Marianne, you're just going to have to do it. Just going to have to be a grown-up. You're going to have to do it. And I know I'm not the only one faced by situations all the time. What would the little girl in me do? And what would the woman in me do? And everybody talks about the inner child. I think a lot of us need to get in touch with our inner adult. Inner child, which really ultimately is that's what the Christ child is, the innocent self. But then there's the adult self that we have to claim too. Just like sometimes people say you have to own your darkness. Yeah, you also have to own your light. You have to own your child. You also have to own your adult. Went through a lot to get here. And of course, ageism is such a big one. And I know, and for those of you who are over 50, let's say, I know there's some things I can't do anymore, things I don't have anymore. But I look at some young, beautiful girls and I go, yeah, you get that now. But there's some things I have that you don't have yet. And I think it's interesting because you have to let go certain things in order to be able to receive the gifts of what's yours now. A lot of phases of a woman's life, it's real big that way. Sexual voluptuousness and all of that. But when we own the fullness of our womanhood, it's a big deal. And I don't think at the deepest level that the world is seeking to obstruct us so much as the world is waiting for us to show up. Course in Miracles says each and every one of us has a part to play in the healing of the world. And when we do not play that part, that there's a hole left, a role to play that no one could play but you. And that's what sisterhood should be, that we support each other in that. If you have a woman friend and she's trying to do something great, ask her, how can I help? Don't go into jealousy and envy and any level of self-sabotage or withholding your permission or withholding your approval. You know, I'm going to tell a story. I was asked not to talk about politics, but this is a story about politics. It's a spiritual story. I ran for the Democratic nomination, and I have two women friends who are very passionate Trump supporters. And in both cases, well, one of them we found out a long time ago. We just don't go there. But the other one, I'm really proud of us. I was telling her the other day, I'm really proud of the way we've navigated our relationship. We've taken care. You know, you have to. I know one woman who told me that her husband supports Trump. She doesn't. She said, Marianne, I can't go there. That could be divorce material. I said, don't go there. We have to protect our relationships till this phase of division is over. And we can remember, once again, we're only here to love each other. And what I found out about my two girl friends who are the Trump supporters is that even though I know that they are passionate about the political figure that they believe in, even though I know they wouldn't have voted for me no matter what, they were two of my kindest friends as I went through that experience. And when it was over, tending to my heart, no one was kinder. No one was there for me more. So we have to remember to be there for each other. And we have to remember how important every woman's dream is. We have to tend and mend. We need to tend and mend our society. We need to tend and mend our earth. We need to tend and mend our own hearts. We have to give ourselves permission to do that. We have to give ourselves permission to be adult women. We have to say sometimes, you're not a little girl, stop acting like one. You're not a little girl, stop talking like one. You're not a little girl, stop hiding like one. Show up and stand up. The fact that you've made mistakes, so have we all. And sometimes, what is it that Hemingway said? Everyone's broken, but some grow stronger in the broken places. I know I've learned as much from my failures as from my successes. The only real failure in life is what you fail to learn from. None of us are here to monitor other people's journey. They're this, they're that. Politically, socially, spiritually, enough. You're not here to monitor other people. We're here to be very vigilant about monitoring ourselves. So I hope that that's what this conference gives to you, a way to deepen your own inquiry into those thoughts that are running things. Remember what I said, beware the power of an unrecognized belief. God lives in you. God lives in all of us. And we are here for a purpose, and that is to extend his love. To say, use my hands, use my feet, use my words, use my talents, use my intelligence, use my resources. Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? You're a daughter of God. And that which created you has been with you this whole time. And I love the line in the Course in Miracles where it says that those people who have achieved the most have achieved a fraction of what each and every one of us are capable of. You haven't even started. The Course says your past is over. It can touch you not. The only thing that's real about your past is the love that was given you and the love that you gave. Course in Miracles says, the Holy Spirit says, give me your past so I can change your mind about it for you. When you realize that only the love was real, you can forgive yourself. That is what it means to forgive yourself and to forgive others. And any place where you got it wrong, the universe is like a GPS. It'll just recalibrate, give you another opportunity to get it right. That's all that life is on any given day. Where you've already been good, guess what? Today you get to be even better. And the ways in which you might have got it wrong in the past, you didn't quite play it right, the universe is going to bring another opportunity and you get another chance to try. And he also says, give me your future. No, the lesson is I place the future in the hands of God. Right now, 21st century, the world is wounded. It needs tending. It needs mending. And the women are here to do that, to lead the way. And that means you and me. And if any little inkling in you says, oh, she can't mean me, look at that again. It is arrogant of you to think that God doesn't mean you. God doesn't create junk. He created you. And he put you here. And he has great plans for you. And on any given day that you make yourself available, such things will happen. And you will feel today, I was quite a woman. I did what I came here to do, or I came really close. And you'll go to sleep and you'll feel much more peaceful. And you'll start noticing reactions being different in people around you. Reactions of respect, reactions of affection, reactions of love. Just make loving the world, giving birth to the new world, tending and mending the world, your purpose, no matter who you are and no matter what you do. And the world will love you back. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak into the listening of this wonderful conference. Thank you, Duke, for giving me the opportunity to be with you again. We have another good 25 years ahead of us. All my love to the Unity Temple. I consider it one of my spiritual homes. And to all of you, my very, very best. Thank you. Bye-bye.